This is New Patreon Series number 75. We're going to talk about Yeshua and Gilgul, or reincarnation, the cycles. Now, death and Gilgul, or what we might think of as reincarnation, was spoken of many times by first century Jewish sages, so that the concept was there, even though it wasn't actually enumerated by Jewish rabbis and commentators and so on until many centuries later. The Bahir, which is attributed to the first century sage Nechunia ben Hakana, although may not have been actually spoken by him or written by him, it used reincarnation to address the classic question of theodicy, why bad things happen to good people and vice versa. It says, why is there a righteous person to whom good things happen, while another righteous person has bad things happen to him? This is because the latter righteous person did bad in a previous life and is now experiencing the consequences. Now, Rabbi Eleazar ben Azariah was thought to be a reincarnation of his ancestor Ezra the Sofer. He was later reincarnated in Rabbi Avraham ibn Ezra. That was what was said of him during that time in the 2nd century. Josephus claims that, quote, only the good, meaning from the Greek word agathos, which means morally good, pass into, that is metabainin, another body. Wicked souls, by contrast, are destined for an eternal punishment. So Josephus was talking about the idea of Gilgul only for the righteous. Now let's look at death and Gilgul in early Jewish thought. Normal death is merely sleep in the shalom of the pardes, in the peace of the pardes. But the tzaddikim, the Jewish saints, reawaken in pardes in chima, which is a form of resurrection, like unto the angels, and they have no need for Gilgul or reincarnation, and eventually evolve and ascend to 8th or 9th heavens, where they telepathically guide advanced human souls. The most spiritually evolved beings, like Enoch, stand as divine beings. Metatron, Enoch was supposed to have been the one incarnation that became Metatron, like the archangels. Yeshua said John was a reincarnation of Elijah, Matthew 17:12-14. But I tell you that Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but they did to him whatever they pleased. Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them about John the Baptist, words of Jesus. Now, the Messianic Jews, Kabbalistic Judaism, and many early Christian churches taught reincarnation. This is a good book I recommend by Rabbi Chaim Vital called The Jewish Concept of Reincarnation and Creation. The Kabbalistic teachings basically go this way, all except the tzaddikim, the righteous ones. Those are the ones that Paul speaks about as having justification, or dikayas sunne. All except the tzaddikim enter into Gehenna for final purification after death, then into the chima, into the standing up after death, the conscious existence after death, which is also related to the idea of resurrection. Now, Catholics developed a doctrine of heaven, hell, and purgatory, and after death, they would say that human souls are either cast into hell for eternal damnation or into purgatory to prepare for paradise. Purgatory is kind of like the idea of Gehenna. The Christian eternal hell developed from the Orphic Hades. That was actually the first concept of a hell as a punishment and hell as eternal and forever. That was put out by the Orphics in Asia Minor and in the early Hellenistic period. So what was the doctrine of Gilgul, which we can think of as reincarnation? Each soul, or neshama, was emanated by God through an individual divine spark known as the Yehida. Through the matrix of Ruach, or spirit, each neshama emanated the sarks, or flesh, into incarnation with its own nephesh that carried the virtues and the chob developed in previous incarnations, the consequences of sin. Now, each incarnation was merely one chapter in that soul's book of life. Each chapter was written by the incarnate nephesh, which had the freedom to follow the guidance of the good or the evil Yetzer through the works or actions taken in life. Those actions created permanent conditions that were stored in the soul, virtues of treasure that sanctified it, or unjust actions and vices that defiled it. The soul was purified of defilements after physical death and dissolution of the flesh, then the nephesh itself. But the karma, or whole consequences of sin, remained to accompany the sarks and nephesh of the next compulsory incarnation. Now, reincarnation was compulsory and it was overseen by the archangel Metatron. However, the Gilgul of a saint like Elijah, who had already achieved Shema and was no longer compelled to reincarnate, was voluntary and sacrificial. It was done as a mission. This is the background to Paul's Christological statement about the Lord Jesus, quote, who though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God something to be preserved, but emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. And being found in human form, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even death on the cross. The Greek word ekenosin, emptied out, surrendered his divine status, allowed his soul to be reincarnated, and his only connection with the heavens to be gradually remembered through the consciousness of the nephesh as he grew up in human flesh. Now, where do Yeshua or the disciples refer to Gilgul, that is reincarnation, in the New Testament? Well, we have one statement in Mark 17, repeated in Luke from the Q source. I tell you that Elijah has already come. We have another in Matthew 11. And if ye will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. In Matthew 16, who do people say I am? They answered, some say you are John the Baptist, others say you are Elijah, and still others say you are Jeremiah or one of the prophets. Now for Yeshua to be John the Baptist, who was recently executed, he would have assumed John's role. But for him to be Elijah, he would be a reincarnation or a Gilgul. For him to be Jeremiah or one of the dead prophets, he would be a reincarnation. So all these references are from Matthew's special material and from Q. None are from Mark or Luke originally, but the Synoptic Gospels imply the similarity to Elijah. So it was known to the writers of these Gospels as well. Luke 7:27, this is of whom it is written, behold, I send my messenger before your face, who will prepare your way before you. Mark 1, now John was clothed with camel's hair and wore a leather belt around his waist and ate locusts and wild honey. So The Gospel writers compared John the Baptist to Elijah from the Old Testament because he wore a garment of camel hair, had a leather belt, he ate grasshoppers and wild honey, and he was considered to be the last Old Testament prophet. Now, John the Baptist was considered to be a Jewish saint like Elijah. All souls of the Zadokим, the saints like Enoch, Elijah, John the Baptist, and Yeshua, existed or pre-existed with God as Chachma, wisdom, before the beginning of time, and like the Elohim, they participated in designing all creation. That was the concept. The ministries of the Malachim, or messengers or angels, were understood to be sovereignties or offices of divine function. They were regarded as Kabbalistic divisions of the greater sovereignties of the Elohim or archangels. The higher spiritual evolution of the saints who no longer reincarnate is implied by the Kabbalistic Haggadah of the 5 trees planted by Noah in paradise after the fall of Adam. This was transmitted in an authentic saying of Yeshua and illuminated for us by his contemporary Philo of Alexandria. You can read about this in the Gospel of Thomas presentations that I put out. Thus, the early Kabbalistic understanding of the Gilgul of Elijah as John the Baptist was probably more as an avatar of Elijah who had no need for reincarnation. Yeshua was considered by his disciples, and possibly by himself, to be an avatar of the Bar Enosh, the cosmic figure of the Son of Man, sent on a prophet's mission to Israel. According to 8th century Kabbalah, the overseer of all incarnations, the archangel Metatron, had lived as righteous Enoch in his first and only incarnation, ascended bodily into the heavens, and was spiritually rewarded with the Malkuth, or divine sovereignty, of an archangel. The Jewish Pharisaic concept of reincarnation was carried forward in many early Christian and Gnostic churches, but was finally preempted in proto-orthodoxy by the doctrine of one incarnation and final judgment. Now here's my conclusion. Please click on my Patreon link in my description just below the video to become a patron, helping to sponsor my new videos on the pre-Christian teachings of Yeshua. Thank you.